Listen, I don't care if you're not getting paid. I need you on this fucking film now. I want you on set in 2 hours and don't give me any fucking bullshit. Yes, it is an unpaid job. No, we don't have any money for catering at all. No. Baked beans.
Okay, here we go, and camera's rolling!
And 3, 2, 1, bang! Okay, thanks, mate.
3, 2, 1.
You know, growing up, we saw just about every $1 weekly video in the horror section, and thought maybe we could make a film that would end up on that shelf.
We'd worked together before on a trilogy of short zombie films years and years ago.
In 1994, we made a trilogy called Attack of the Undead, Rampage of the Undead, and Massacre of the Undead, and they were kind of the basis of the feature film.
So I sort of knew how they worked. I knew that they were fans of special effects.
The intention with Undead was to try to make a horror movie that was more of a throwback to the traditional type of horror films that we loved as kids.
I suppose when you make any type of film, whether it's low budget or big budget, you know, it's always going to be difficult. But when you're making a low budget film to look like a big budget production, it kind of requires an enormous amount of effort.
When I first read it, I just remember thinking, this is pretty ambitious.
I thought, gee, this looks really big.
I mean, this is their first film, and how are they going to do half these shots?
Like, how the hell are they going to do some of these effects?
We pretty much committed 2.5 years of our lives to this project, and that's every day, sometimes 18-hour days, 7 days a week.
Peter and Michael come to me with a low-budget film, and I think, yeah, great, that'll be quite easy. But then turn around and look at it, and there's 11 interior sets. Nearly every interior scene that was shot, we pretty much had to build.
When I first got the script, I was a little bit overwhelmed because I wasn't exactly sure on how we're going to be able to do that much stuff on such a limited budget.
Our budget ran out on the halfway through day one, so we were pretty much left with nothing. We had to try and find all the props, dressings, flats, everything from scratch. We got paint for free after begging for it endlessly. We pulled things from far and wide, under houses, out of bins.
The only way you're ever going to be able to make a film like this with the budget that we had is you get a group of people together that are incredibly enthusiastic and are as excited about the project as Michael and I were.
Okay, today is day one of 41 days of shooting. We're driving the Marion's World of Weapons vans, which is doubling as a production vehicle. Doesn't sound too good at the moment. Hopefully it'll survive the shoot.
The first week of production was staged in a warehouse. It was all set inside Marion's house.
We pretty much see it before we get to know Marion, so we tried to convey his character through his living room. It's sort of his hideout from the rest of the world.
I think on a normal film set, you're shooting about 17 shots a day, and we were shooting about 40, 50 shots a day.
I think the first week of any movie, you never quite know what you're in for, and First day was something like 17 or 18 hours, and it was something horrendous.
I think my concern was that we were only into the first week of 41 days of shooting, and I was worried that none of us would survive.
I think the toll of the size of the picture hit me by day 3, and I was so sick. I've never been so sick before in my life.
The first week was the worst. We had the majority of the zombie stuff was in that first week.
By the 4th day, I was taking a light reading, checking the frame, then lying down in between the trimming of lights. I was that sick.
I think my record was about 3 days without sleep, and by trying to get all this stuff ready on time and then going on set and applying it myself, and I had a couple of people helping. So something happened. I picked up a virus or picked up some super flu, and the colour of my skin went all funky, and I had problems with my tongue bleeding.
Today is actually the quiet day. We start on Tuesday onward, on Monday onwards, 6 days of just non-stop.
Renee Chaplin, my character, is a country girl. She wins a beauty pageant and she only enters it to get some money to leave the town. She doesn't want to be in the town anymore. But then, of course, all hell breaks loose.
Her character was the only one that had some sort of grounding in reality. Everyone else was insane.
Marion is a very misunderstood man. He owned a gun store in the little town of Berkeley, and he was doing quite well for himself. And one day he was out fishing on his boat and he was abducted by aliens. And he went to the town and told the townspeople his story, and they just thought he was an absolute nutcase, that he'd flipped.
Wayne's the local charter pilot. He's a bit of an idiot. So he's not really someone that, you know, goes out of his way to be an idiot. You know, he's kind of the unwilling class clown.
Molly Ford, she's very afraid, and Harrison gives her a hard time, and it's a pretty rough first day at work for her.
What are you, dumb and fucking stupid? She said open the fucking door! When I was a kid, we fucking respected our parents. We didn't fucking eat them! Sir! It's all that fucking crack marijuana, fucking hippie, fucking surfy, fucking dull-bloods and pricks, fucking... Sir!
There was a news story floating around on television at the time that we were talking about the film, and the boys suggested we do the moustache thing. There's a copper on telly who had a very similar moustache, and yeah, the character was kind of based around the moustache, I think, really.
Yeah, it's hard to keep a straight face sometimes with Dirk. Some of the things that he was saying, you know, when you got to keep a straight face and be totally serious, and you got Dirk going.
The character of Sally Ann, who Lisa plays, she is from a small bakery, so we had to establish that she works there because you never see her working there. And the fact that she's pregnant, we had to build a pregnancy suit for her to wear. The first thing I kind of thought of was along the lines of manga animation, creating a definite character, giving it something that was not comical, but along the lines of they had definite costumes instead of just something you'd wear every day.
One of the things that I intended for the character was to have him not blink when I was shooting, and we did a lot of gunplay practice.
Right.
I was pretty scared. I was very scared of shooting the guns.
It's not going to hurt you, okay? Now, that's exactly what I mean. She looks like a dog screwing a cactus.
I held this gun in my hand and just thought, I'm a bit nervous.
No, it's not going to hurt you, love. Now let it go. And again, quick. That's it. Now there's a handful in there. And again.
On the day when we shot, the guns were black, I think, originally, and no, one of them was black and one of them was silver, and they both had to be the same colour. So the other one got painted silver, had the silver frosting over the top of it. And come shooting, I'm firing away, and all this paint is just chipping off and flying into my face, and it was impossible not to blink.
The genre was not necessarily my cup of tea, but in all honesty, when I saw what we were doing, and I knew after the first day's rushes we were doing something pretty unique.
Rolling and action and 3, 2, 1, bang!
How's it going?
It's going all right so far. But who knows what could happen after lunch.
So Steve, when you wanted to be an actor, did you think that this would be on the cards?
I had a sneaking suspicion that it'd end up like this.
Action!
This came out of your imagination. That's the really sick part.
Now just get some chunks and just throw it at the wall.
When I first saw like the details of the script as far as zombies and that sort of thing, you'd read it and say 10 zombies were breaking through the door and that sort of thing, and you think, well, that's not too bad, that's quite easy. But there'll be a lot of different scenes shot on the same day where you'd need, 10 different, zombies per scene. And at the time, I didn't really know. I had only like 1 or 2 assistants. I wasn't sure how we were going to do that as far as speed. That was just myself building everything in the lab, and then when we went out to set, like even the days where we had up to 30 zombies, I probably only had the assistance of about 3 people on average. And so we had to cut that time down for, preferably 1.5 hours per zombie to something ridiculous like 30 minutes per zombie.
The stunt training for hanging upside down was pretty interesting. I remember I got picked up by Michael and Peter early in the morning, and I was very hungover. I'd eaten 2 whole pizzas and drank nearly a whole bowl of scotch, and feeling really queasy. And here I am being driven down to the Gold Coast to be hung upside down.
Yeah. That's one that you got it right.
Yeah, that's good. Bang, bang, bang.
On the day when they strung me up for shooting, and I just found out that 10 people, 10 guys were lifting me up. So that's pretty astounding. I didn't know I was that heavy.
Camera is rolling and action! And swing back and swing forward!
Afterwards, they shot the stunt double jumping on a trampoline, and they'd taken away the top section of the door frame, so it left it open, like an open space. And then they composited the shot where they put it all back in, and it all looked so nice and smooth. Where I smacked the spurs into the wall and do the gun toting.
Once we had finished the first week of hell in Marion's house, we still had our Marion's World of Weapons van that we hadn't aged yet. So everyone got the chance to kick the shit out of the van.
It's destroyed.
Relieve a lot of the stress that was caused from that first week.
It's our first day of exterior shooting, and Michael's not here because the van's broken down. He's on the side of the road waiting for the tow truck to come, so we're going to try and shoot this thing without him.
We had 2 vans. One was my own, and the other one was the actual prop that was on camera, our on-camera vehicle. And basically between the 2 vehicles we transported every bit of art department and and lighting gear to and fro from sets and location.
It's been a little bit of a car breakdown, and
you got
the
that from your car?
cables have been left in that car, so we've had to kind of like join three together.
Three very, very short
Very,
cables.
very short cables.
What was it? Was it the fuel? Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It could be a busted fuel pump.
We knew we were going to be very, very limited to the amount of takes we could do. We storyboarded everything, every single frame of the film, so that we would shoot only what was absolutely necessary.
We were under a fair bit of pressure as actors to try and get the shot right the first take.
What was really cool about working with all these actors is they sort of jumped into this film really excited about the fact that this film was so bizarre and so different to anything that they would normally come across.
I hated working with the other actors. I think if I was the only one in the film, it would have been a lot easier, much easier to shoot, and I wouldn't have had to talk to anyone.
We're very fortunate we had a great cast who were really put through some rather horrible, cold, wet situations.
We were shooting out in the sticks and it was absolutely freezing cold. I think it was like 2 degrees.
Bob Jenkins.
Freezing his tits off.
It was so cold when we shot. You know, the steam that you see coming out of our mouths, our breath, it was so cold.
Everyone else is wearing greatcoats and you're wearing sexy little shorts and walk socks.
Wind, rain being pumped on us from a dam.
Being hosed down, hearing the call, okay, hose him down. Hose him down, so they turn the garden hoses on.
Our health was starting to deteriorate somewhat.
I don't know which little bastard it was, you know, but I think it might have been Michael, actually.
For the zombie spine shot, originally it was going to be like a prosthetic waist piece that tucked into his trousers, and then from that prosthetic piece up was going to be green screen. We had a little prosthetic spine which glued onto the front.
Unfortunately, it was quite flat and didn't have a great deal of dimension to it.
And the limitations with that, obviously, you could only shoot it from the front. If you shot it from the side, it wouldn't be as effective.
But at that point, I wasn't actually working on the movie, so I said, hey, let's do that digital and secure myself a spot.
We put markers on the suit so that once we had like a digital spine, we could actually track that on. That gave us a lot more freedom as far as shooting around, having the spine flop more.
It allowed for a lot more animation and character.
And helping it become one of the signature shots in the film.
Considering the amount of money we had to beg, steal, borrow, find, scrounge things to make an alien wall, so we decided to cover some flats with pipage, weird shapes, strange objects, anything we could find, and then we covered that in black plastic and melted it. It did cause noxious fumes, which probably took many years off my life.
On average, we would get about 2 hours sleep a night. There were days when we would turn up to the set and we'd just be shaking from no sleep.
I think it was just summing up what was going to be Undead for everyone.
Yeah, don't ever say I don't do anything for you guys on this film. Cracked a bone in my hand.
Did you really?
Tore part of the muscle on my arm. Through there.
Did you really get the bone in your hand?
Yeah, on the second jump when I
all
came
in the
down
trailer.
and I had the cords down, it still got caught. The cord must have got caught because as I hit the ground, my hand tucked under, and then had bruising through the groin and
that wasn't
in the shoulder.
Yeah, that was from Friday night at the beach.
Why don't you go one more time?
So Grant, how have you felt the sound has gone throughout the course of shooting? Do you feel you've done an excellent job, or has it just been sound?
The sound's been good in times, but all right.
With the total budget, we had nearly a dozen sets we had to build. So things like the general store to build, paint, dress 3 aisles full of groceries, fridges, a counter. We were only allowed to spend $700-800.
And from that,
for Chip Zombie, there was a scene where he got hit in the head with a shovel, and the script said that his face got flipped off. So once we had the zombie makeup on, we built a shovel out of foam core with like the shape of his head taken out of it. That was thrown into his head. We had like a whole face piece to look like the skull underneath, and all the muscles and that sort of thing. And then on top of that, we put a rubber piece, which was just a copy of his own face. And between those two pieces of rubber, we injected fluid and blood and ultra slime and that sort of thing, so that once the shovel actually flipped off the skin, you'd see the skull underneath with all the little bits hanging out.
Yeah, we had to contend with, unfortunately, we couldn't afford proper 12 by 12 or 20 by 20 green screens. So unfortunately, what we did have was a backyard canvas that was painted, which was quite interesting sometimes, trying to light, particularly with the creases that were evident.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you're standing and you've just got people all around you, and a green screen behind you and beneath you, you have nothing to go on and nothing to trust but the direction of the directors and also your imagination.
So on certain days we would drive the Marion's World of Weapons van home when it was still covered in blood, just so we wouldn't have to reset the blood for the next day.
I think directing is hard enough. Having to do extra things like driving. Peter had to drive the generator truck out to locations, and Peter didn't even have a truck license. And having to transport most of the equipment around to locations.
What do you think of the van? What's it like to drive?
I think it's a piece of art, mate.
It just destroys you before you even get out and have to direct.
2 hours behind time every day. No money, no windscreen wipe.
Gates are out. Hey. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Thank you very much.
41 days of shooting. This car's broken down 7 times. Today was the final day of shooting, and this time I think I've completely destroyed the engine. The rear vision mirror actually doesn't hold in place. It's held with double-sided tape at the back. So when you move it, have a look. It kind of doesn't sit right. So these wipers actually don't work. That's purely there for show. These lights up here broke. These lights up here broke off, held on with gaffer tape. So Andy, tell me what happened to the beautiful Panavision camera we started off with.
Sorry, Mongo? Exactly. Where was that, hey?
You good, mate? You right? Yeah. Nothing works very well.
Michael and Peter are the best directors I've ever worked on a feature film with.
How many features have you worked on, Lisa?
This is my first.
3.
3, 2, 1.
So Lisa, what's it like being an actor in this film?
Oh, fabulous. It's really good feeling.
Tonight is one of our last nights of shooting. We're shooting the van crashing, which is right here in the ditch. It's a little bit of a
let's just say it's not entirely safe. The night we crashed the van would be without a doubt the worst shoot in my entire life.
We shot on second year. Unfortunately, at this point in time, money had totally run out.
You combine every bad shoot you've ever had and then you multiply that by 20.
Because we couldn't afford any light stands or anything of that nature at this point, or any rigging, we had to chain everything. So everything was, cabling was running up trees, multiple trees. I think we had something maybe 8 to 9 lights in trees.
Let it tilt down. I've got to let it sit further out on the branch.
But it was a night that it was actually pouring rain.
It not just rained, it just pissed down.
You still having fun, Andy?
We didn't have any money for stunt people. We couldn't afford to really do it properly.
Come on, let's go.
The only way we could do it was by putting a brick on the accelerator, tying the steering wheel down, jacking it up.
I'm going to start the engine. I'm going to run to the back. I'm going to roll my camera. I'm going to say roll cameras. Everybody else speed. And we're going to push the van.
And then knocking it off the jack and sending it on its way. And just kind of hoping that it wouldn't veer off and head towards any houses. The wheel starts spinning, and because it'd been raining so heavily, the wheels just got bogged and the car was just spinning and spinning. So I had to stand back up and push it so that it would actually push itself out of the ground and drive into the creek.
It was a bit of a hectic event, to say the least.
So Rob, any comments on your last day of shooting?
I don't know, mate, I'll tell you when I'm there. I'll tell you on that last day.
You don't believe this is the last day of shooting?
I believe nothing you pricks tell me anymore.
That's
It's
unfair.
been the same fucking lies time and time again. This is the third time I've been told it's the last day.
You know why it's the last day?
No more film?
No more film, no more money.
Initially with the end sequence with the alien, we were just going to do a bit of a reveal, have him take off his hood, we see the face, and that was it. Then Stephen Bevan came to us and said, look, I think we can do something a little more here.
The alien started out with concept designs and went from there to being built as a puppet, which was operated on set.
And I said, well, why don't we do like a cool revealing, sequence, and so show more of the body, so there's actually something there instead of just alluding to something. So I did a body so that we could actually tilt from the head and go down on the body and see just a bit more of his physique.
From that design, sculpted an 18-inch sculpture, or called a maquette, which we sent to Sydney to be scanned. We took that into the computer, put controls in it for setting up the way that it was going to move and the way that it was going to behave. Textured it to make sure it looked the same, sat it into the scene, matched all the lighting, animated the shots.
Today's day is the 26th of January. What do we do? Shooting was supposed to end in the middle of September.
I believe today is day 59. Last day of shooting for you, how do you feel?
Yes, we're nearly here, the promised land. Very happy.
And do you believe it's the last day?
No, I don't. I believe we'll get a phone call in about a week's time going, we need to pick up this shot, we need to pick up that shot. But over 2,000 shots, I can't believe it.
So right now we don't have a pyrotechnician, so Michael's making the pyros himself. Alright, I'm going to be over here. 3, 2, 1, bang! And action, go!
Oh, it got me! Man down!
The smashing through the windscreen scene, I came in thinking that they were going to have this really fantastic piece of candy glass rigged up like a windscreen of a plane. And I turn up and I'm not sure who it was, Peter or Michael came up to me and said, oh, we had a bit of trouble getting the candy glass. What do you mean? well, it's a bit expensive and kind of ran out of money, you know, hope it's all right. I was like, okay, so what are you doing instead? And I think it was Michael said, well, we got a real piece of glass and we're just going to shoot it so that it looks like you're going through it. I was like, okay, but I'm not actually going to go through it. No. And then I came on after they did that, and they had me on a platform on a dolly, set of dolly tracks, and sort of ran me headfirst into nothing, into this void, and you know, in the magic of cut and paste, they sort of stuck it together and created the going through the windscreen.
Molly? Angus?
Gates clear.
Oh yeah! And that is a wrap.
Maybe those things built it.
Ready to give it a go?
Yeah.
Alright, here we go. Stand by.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
It's wood grain, not vomit.
So far I've got no notes, but we'll be filling this book hopefully. The music for Undead, we were really trying to steer away from the typical zombie horror film genre type thing of synthesizers. We were really trying to go for a big, very theatrical, very big, lush orchestral sound.
You know, I kept saying to Cliff, it has to be action-adventure rather than horror.
We stay here, we head up to One Welling's Dam.
We luckily had some really good sample libraries, and to that we just added a few key live instruments to really add the live touches where it really needed them. Well, with no money, we had a fairly rudimentary improvised recording studio setup which consisted of recording all the instruments and the choir in my mum's office.
I've never seen in an independent movie before the amount of visual effects this movie has. I think it has in total over 300.
We did a 13-minute animatic to figure out how we were going to do the end sequence of the film. Again, that was done because we didn't have the money and the resources to go out and shoot a lot of stuff. We had to shoot exactly what we needed.
You know, the hardest thing about doing the visual effects was not actually learning the technology to do it. That wasn't the problem. What the problem was is once you'd learned the technology, you weren't sure whether the computer actually had the processing power to handle the set extension you wanted to do, or you wanted to clone the wall so you could do a big wide shot of the wall, and you just had no idea whether once you hit the render button whether the computer would actually even render a frame, and quite often it wouldn't. So you'd have to figure out, well, what can I exclude from this shot to actually allow the computer to render and not destroy the quality of the image.
We spent about 8 months doing all the visual effects. We had 3 computers going at once, and on average each one of them would crash about 10 to 15 times a day. Most of the sequence at the end of the film with the 3D plane was done on my laptop. We're doing everything at film resolution, so sometimes a shot would take about 11 hours to render a frame.
For these guys to, you know, be in their bedroom on the computers and making all these digital effects was mind-blowing. To be able to get up and do it themselves, to be able to do everything themselves is amazing. When I first saw the film, I was absolutely blown away.
It's come together so well.
It was unlike anything I've ever been a part of before.
Just thought it just was way beyond our expectations.
Just to have everyone, when my character first comes on, you know, it was tingly, the tingly feelings, yeah.
I think everybody came through in the most amazing way.
The direction is some of the best I have ever seen.
Looking back on it and seeing how much work everyone's put in is just incredible.
I honestly, truly believe there's never been a movie made like this anywhere.